And now we're back. Welcome, Karl. So now we've discussed our favourites. We've discussed a few of the betting odds. But now, we talked about how there's a few Next Stars. It could be a bit of a down year for the Next Stars. We'll get to some emerging Aussies in a minute. But a little birdie on the street tells me that there's a young recruit coming through, Dash Daniels, who is a Bendigo kid and been playing quite well for Australia at the junior championships the past couple of seasons. He's in a situation where it's a great situation to be in, where he's got the option of offers from places like North Carolina. So the rumor mill tells us. But then also the opportunity to go and be a Next Star. I believe it's next season. If you were in his situation, or you had a kid in that situation that's coming through with the option to go to college, I believe if he does the Next Star process, he's actually NBA eligible a year earlier than if he would go to college, based on how that year of being a professional works at the younger age. So I guess what I'm getting at, and just using Dash as an example, as if you were in that situation looking at the NBL, which franchises or teams, clubs, whatever we want to call them, do you find the most appealing or least appealing as far as where you would recommend a player in that situation to go? So obviously, first of all, I'm just going to cross off Adelaide. We know it's the giddy place, but we know they're an absolute shit show. You wouldn't want to go there. I don't think so. You might think otherwise, but I guess if in that situation, what would you recommend to a young talent like Dash Daniels or an international Next Star coming in?
Well, the NBL's footing the bill, so you don't need to worry about which team's big budget, which team is small budget, blah blah blah. In terms of a location, I wouldn't want to go to a contender, to be honest. I don't think any of the Next Stars who've wound up with high draft stock have gone to contenders. So that puts yeah. So, and what was that? Sorry,
Alex Sarr is the exception, probably, isn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah,
Oh,
I guess Saar is the exception. But again, was Perth the best team last year? I kind of didn't believe in Perth, so I'm not really bothered by that too much. And Saar's kind of a different kettle of fish sort of thing too. Like, it was just like the NBL's short on big, so he's going to get minutes wherever he goes. I wouldn't go to Melbourne because they're always contending. Melbourne haven't really produced any young kids that have come through the system that have done really, really well elsewhere. I can't name any anyway.
Well, I guess what would be the main things you're looking at? I guess stability of the franchise, coach.
I'm not even worried about
time.
that, man.
No?
LaMelo Ball played at Illawarra, and Illawarra were a basket case.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about it because it's a short-term thing. It's a one-year thing. All I'm asking for is minutes and a prominent role within the team. I think that's probably what you're looking out for, being like one of the guys for that team, rather than being a bench role player coming off the bench where my value's diminished. Because like we all highly respect the NBL. A lot of scouts do, but I think sometimes they don't kind of recognize the leap that it is from college to the NBL, what a difference it is. And a guy who's like figuring prominently in college is getting a lot more bandwidth within NBA circles and getting a lot more attention and a lot more eyeballs than what someone who is chopping in for 10 or 15 minutes on an NBL bench. Unless you are a Saar or something like that, where you're a prodigious talent hyped up before the season. And I'll also say, Saar, this is a pretty weak draft class as well. If I was Daniels, I'd lean probably towards one of the Queensland teams. I probably Cairns, because I think out of everyone, Adam Ford's shown that he is willing to put the most minutes into young players in the NBL, and also they just don't have the money to be able to bring in these import stars, etc., to contend. So right now, I know it sounds funny, but I'd probably lean towards one of the Queensland teams.
Well, I think what goes into play is that guy there, if I can get my fingers pointed right. It's the same as that guy right there. And maybe the influence of DMAC, particularly for someone who's a guard. DMAC as an assistant, I think that would be a fantastic opportunity to go and learn from someone like that, even if you're not playing more than half a game. I feel that that would be pretty invaluable as well.
You want maximum exposure, man. That's what it's about. LaMelo Ball went from, I know he's a social media star and all that sort of stuff, but handing the keys to him at Illawarra really bumped his stock up. And the same, I think, with Giddy too. That Adelaide let Giddy run that year too, and he was really impressive. So, and they took some lumps for it, as did Illawarra. Illawarra took a lot of lumps for having LaMelo Ball dominating the basketball with high usage rate. But I think it has to be a franchise that's willing to like make some sacrifices for you.
And I think that's probably where a little bit of last season, particularly when teams were written off, like it would have been nice to see more of Trenton Flowers. I mean, AJ Johnson was rawer than the Asai that's in my cupboard. And like
Yeah.
Bobby Clintman, like when he was playing, like they were fun to watch. Do you know what I mean? It made those teams a little bit more watchable, but because Adelaide was sorting their own shit out, Cairns thought they could contend. There was different things that come into play. So I do like what you like.
Because Tasmania and Melbourne want to win now. Sydney want to win now. Sydney might, because Sydney, like at least Pongrass has shown that he's willing to commit to young guys, and if they are up to the level, be all in on them. If Daniels could be a contributor straight away, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I wouldn't touch Melbourne, wouldn't touch Tasmania, probably wouldn't touch Perth either, because I thought Saar got a pretty rough deal in Perth anyway.
Yeah, and I mean Brizzy, thing with them as well is their ownership group. Yeah, it's a bit inconsistent, I suppose, but they did get caught out a bit over a year ago, and seems like they're a little bit more onto it. But Chris Middleton, part of the ownership group, for example, does that kind of exposure help? I mean, you don't even know how much attention they're paying, but
I think that's all largely PR rubbish that doesn't really help too much. I think you'll have the scouts that come out here anyway. And if the scouts get to see a lot of you playing, that's better than the scouts watching you sitting on the pine.
I agree very much.